And it has to do with this amazing book right here, which is Shift. That's what we are in. We're not going in, we are in this right now. So we're going to be spending a lot of time today. As a topic today is all about shift. We call this Take Command of Shift for a reason, because we need to grasp these materials, and it is in due time. Because as the Market Center Tech Trainers and I got together and discussed how we were going to do these calls going through the summer and finishing up the year, we decided that we have the resources right in front of us. I've got a whole bookshelf back here full of these books, and we need to utilize them. So we started with MREA. We talked about the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And if you didn't get a chance to watch that one, you can go back to our website, which is kwsouthfloridaregion.com/videos, and you will find all of the take commands we've done in the past right there. And you can hear Gary and Nikki talk about their experiences as they were going through the process of the book MREA being written. So it was a very interesting conversation. So go back and listen to that, and then you get to hear all of the different MREA topics talked about throughout the day in the different calls. So if there's a certain topic that you think you need to work on, you can go back and watch those. Today, we're going to talk about shift, and we're going to talk about the different topics. We're going to start off with Miss Jackie Ellis, and she's going to, again, talk about the market of the moment. And then we're going to follow this call up with Brandy Coffey, who is an OP, and she is down in the Sarasota area. And she's a luxury realtor, and she's amazing. She's also going to be featured in our masterminds that's going to be happening here later in a couple months. So if you're going to masterminds, you will see Brandy again. She's been great in our region, helping with our region. She is in the North Florida region though, and she's going to be talking about the luxury market on a shift. And then Mabel and Liliana Pickens are going to be talking about creating urgency to overcome buyer reluctance, which is one of the shift tactics. And then Chaz Bradley's going to come on. If you've never seen Chaz talk, you got to come and watch this. This guy is on fire. If you're part of the shift pivot group, then you've probably seen Chaz on there. He's very vocal. He's going to talk about getting your mind right. Okay. And then Nordis, who is on here, she's going to be following up at 2:00, and she's going to talk about remargining your business and expense management. And then the very last class today is, if you speak Spanish, it's just for you guys. So you can come and watch Liliana and Mabel talk about basically everything we've talked about today, but they're going to put it into Spanish. So we've got a full day for you. My name is Ryan Yarbrough. I'm the Regional Tech Director for South Florida. I want to thank you guys very much for coming on today. And I'm going to go ahead and kick this off because I've got Jackie here, and we want to talk about the market we're in. So Jackie, first of all, who are you?
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jackie Ellis, and I am the operating partner of 2 market centers in South Florida, one in Boynton Beach and one in Boca Raton. And if Ryan's asking me, who am I? I'm a real estate agent. At the end of the day and at the beginning of the day, that's who I am. And I'm so proud to be part of this industry that we're all in. So Ryan just held up the Shift book, which I find is so interesting. And I know that real estate agents across our country are reading it. And you asked me, how do I know? Well, it's been quite a few years since that book came out. However, I was part of helping put it together with Gary Keller, Dave Jenks, and Jay Papazon. I'm really proud of that. I'm actually quoted 2 or 3 times in the book, and my photo is in the front. And I hadn't thought about that in many, many years. However, now I get these texts and phone calls from agents all over the country that I don't even know, saying, oh my gosh, we saw you in the Shift book. So I'm just so happy everyone is pulling that book out because it is so relevant today. And why is it relevant? So we have been in a upward trending market since, I don't know, way over a decade, almost 15 years now. So most of the real estate agents that are in our market or in our industry right now have never worked a market like we're about to work. And so I want to share some strategies to help you guys navigate your way through this market. Hi, Brett Bishop. I see you. Good morning. So I'm going to give you today 4 really great tips. You might want to have something to write with if that's your thing. And then I'm going to end the talk today with the opportunities that this market brings us, because right now we're hearing a lot of negative messages about the upcoming market. And I don't want to leave you with that, because this is a very normal cycle we're going to. The only thing it's not normal is that it took so long to get here. Gary Keller has been talking to us about the shift for many, many years. And even he was blown away that it didn't come when he thought it would come. So, you know, as we know, it's all very unpredictable, but I'm pretty sure we're facing it now. Now, it won't be like before, meaning there were so many short sales, meaning the sellers owed more on their properties than the property was worth. And so they had to negotiate with the bank. There will be some of those, but not as many. And there won't be as many foreclosures. Again, there will be some, but not as many. It's not that our banking industry is blowing up again. It is just that prices are not going to continue to go up, and buyers will not be able to afford as much as they have been because the interest rates have gone up to an incredible 6%, which just know that is less than half of what I used to sell in. We would sell in 12 and 14%. And I remember one day the interest rates dropped to 8%. It was the biggest news ever in the real estate industry. And I spent 3 days calling my database to let them know that, help them all refinance their homes. At 8%, it was the biggest news. So 6% is still an incredible rate, but of course we're not used to 6%. We got very, very spoiled as real estate agents and buyers. So 6% is still good. However, that does mean that buyers are going to be able to afford less, which means they will want to pay less. So let's get started with some pricing strategies. We'll talk about today's market, or what the market we're just coming out of, and the possible one that we're entering. So to do that, I drew a little pricing curve, and I know it's hard to see when I don't have a slide to share on the screen, and I want to apologize for that. But this is just a bell curve that shows how prices have been going up. So we'll just do an arrow to show how they've been going up. And then eventually they hit the top, as we know, which we probably think we are right here right now. And then, of course, they'll start sliding down. Now, what do I mean about prices going up? So if I was a real estate agent, and the market value, when I looked at the solds, this is an S for solds, if the market value showed me I should be right here on my pricing, it would be okay to price my listing up here because the market would eventually increase to match it. And as the years went on, you guys, these gaps would be closed almost instantaneously. It didn't take 2 weeks to close this gap. Sometimes they were closed in hours. And so the next real estate agent would price their listing up here. And if the market was still here, it would still catch up. So that was very hard to overprice a real estate listing in the market that we're coming out of. However, when we go to price homes right now, we have to think differently. We no longer can just depend on the sold listings, which we have all been trained to do. So when even I train people, when you're doing a market analysis, to look at the last 3 or 4 solds that sold within the last 60 days or 90 at the most, and use that to compare your subject property with. Well, we really can't do that anymore. So we can look at the solds, we can show the sellers the sold, but we really have to look over here at the actives. Because if we price a house here, and the market is really here, if there's a listing out there that's priced less than ours, then we are going to be continually chasing the market, and our sellers are going to lose so much money doing that. By the way, they aren't going to always just automatically believe you on this, because the sellers are the last to get out of denial on pricing. So you're going to have to really learn some skills on your listing presentations. And I can't tell you how many times I drew this very pricing curve on a scrap piece of paper right there with my sellers and showed them that. So now we're going to look at the active listings. We're going to look at to see who's our competition out there. And we are going to do 2 things. We're going to price them under that active listing. We're going to be the best on the market. And we're also going to talk about condition and showing conditions, which is now going to matter again. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. So pricing strategies will definitely change. We are not going to just be able to look at sold listings. We are going to really have to show our sellers that they've got to be the best in the bunch. They got to be the king on the hill. They've got to be the one that catches the buyer's eyes. They've got to show extreme value now, and they didn't really have to do that before. The good news for our sellers, if they are turning around and buying, then they'll be able to take advantage of the market. It always all comes out in the laundry, if you know what I mean. Okay, so pricing is going to change. That's number one tip. Number two is I want to talk about servicing a listing. And those real estate agents like myself that have been around, this is, I think, my 32nd or third year selling real estate full time. We have learned to service a listing in a way that our sellers are always kept in the loop. They're always satisfied. They know we're working. They feel like they're our only customer. And even though we don't get to sell them in the first week, so sometimes you're holding on to listings for a very long time. Let me tell you a quick story that happened to me. When I first joined Keller Williams, it was about the year 2005, and our market was really changing. And just like now, it changes overnight. And I remember being at a team meeting, and the team leader at the time, this was way before I was an operating partner, so I was one of the first agents, if not the first, in Boynton Beach. And so we went to a team meeting, and the then team leader got up in front and showed everybody how many listings I had, and that I was the top listing agent, and I had $40 million in inventory. Now, that might not sound a lot to a lot of you, but back then, the prices weren't like today. This is 2005, so I want to tell you that the average price was maybe 300, 350, something like that. I might have had a few upper end ones over 500, but basically they were all what we refer to as meat and potatoes. So that's a lot of listings. The team meeting was on a Tuesday. They showed that graph on the screen, and I almost threw up. Now, just be aware that everybody in the room's clapping for me because I'm the top amazing listing agent. I've got all this inventory, but I'm sitting there realizing I have all these listings and not one of them got shown over the weekend. Not one showing. So just know my stomach started to turn, realizing I cannot keep doing business the way I have been. I cannot keep advertising all these listings and trying to prove to the seller that I've got all these ads out for them, because I would very quickly go bankrupt, which, by the way, many, many real estate agents did. Luckily, I was with KW and knew to start learning and get my skills. I changed my whole listing appointment. I changed everything I do. I stopped advertising. Back then it was newspapers and magazines. I stopped all that and started to build a different career based on skills. And by the way, I was not a new agent. I was the top agent in all of Palm Beach County. So I thought I had skills. But to be honest, I really got most of my listings by promising advertising, and I couldn't do that anymore. I had to figure out another way. So $40 million in listings was not something I was proud of. And I realized that every single one of those needed price adjustments, and the sellers were not going to be happy with that. But I went to work, and it was sometimes took 4 and 5 and 6 price reductions to get it down pat. All right. So the other thing is, when you're holding on to a listing that's not selling in a week or two, you have to learn how to service your listing. So tip number 2 is on service. We have to let the sellers know when we're going to communicate, how often we're going to communicate, how we're going to communicate, and we have to do it in a systematic fashion. If the seller is calling us to ask for updates or whatever it is, we have failed. I know the phone call to get every week to say, oh, I had a showing over the weekend, how did it go, is a real estate agent's nightmare. So we're going to talk to the seller about expectations right up front. So the expectations are going to sound like, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, on the weekend and throughout the week, you might have some showings, which would be great. And I know that you'll be very curious as to how that showing is going. Now, here's two things I want you to know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, about these showings. Number one, I will try my hardest to contact these real estate agents, but just know they didn't just show your house, they showed 8 or 9 other houses over the weekend as well. And on Monday morning, they have 9 real estate agents chasing them down. Chances are they don't even remember what your house is, which one is your house. And if they do, they don't really have solid feedback. The feedback is if we've done everything right, you will have offers. However, we still want to give you updates. So every Tuesday morning between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., we will contact you with how many showings you had and if we were able to get any really great feedback for you. And we will be honest with that feedback because we don't want to we don't want to coat this with anything other than the truth. When you start to do business with us, you can trust us because in our world, trust starts with honesty, and I will always be honest with you. So how would you like me to contact you? Would you like me to leave you a voicemail, to call you at any specific number, to text you, to email you? Let me know on Tuesdays the best way to communicate with you. And now they will stop calling you because they will wait for their communication on Tuesday. However, if you don't follow up and call them on that Tuesday, so every Tuesday you've got to block out the time, your lead generation time will now be replaced on Tuesdays with this update. However, that doesn't mean you will give up lead generation. You will just generate the next lead from these very sellers that you are giving an update to. You will end every single phone call with Mr. Seller. I always consider you to be a priority, and I will watch you like a hawk. And I want to know who else do you know that could use this kind of service. So I'm always going to ask them, who else do they know? And by the way, I'm always going to lead generate with sellers to find other sellers. Now, sometimes I will find buyers by doing that as well, but I'm always going to ask for who else is selling. You're going to need also a communication service system. So what do I mean about that? What's the most powerful communication you can do with anyone out there? Ryan, can you keep an eye on the chat box and let's see if anybody can pipe in and answer that question? Most powerful form of communication. What do you guys think it is? Anybody answering, Ryan?
Come on, phone call.
Phone call. Okay. Anybody else have a different answer?
Face to face.
Okay. I love the face to face, belly to belly. Oh, that's one of the things I say a lot. Okay. Doorknob. So I agree with all of you, but I want to add one other thing in there. I want to add a personal note. The more high tech we get, the more high touch we have to do. The first thing a seller should receive from you, whether you've listed the property or not, is a personal note. It doesn't have to be these long things. I've always learned to get a fat pen and write 2 sentences. If I get the listing, you know, it's dear John and Sally, thank you for trusting me with the sale of your home. I promise to not let you down. Signed, Jackie. That's it. If I don't get the listing, it's something like, I look forward to doing business with you. I always want to be a resource, something like that. So, but that note will cut through anything in their mailbox. And every time I have a phone conversation, so Brett, you're absolutely right. Phone calls are golden, but I never have a phone call without a personal note. And so I want to ask all of you, there's 52 people on this Zoom right now. I want to ask you, when's the last time you wrote a personal note to anyone? Just know Ryan Yarbrough will be getting a personal note from me for even hosting this amazing event. It's important to communicate personally with people. The power of a personal note cannot be talked about enough. So we need to start doing that with every buyer, seller. I even like it with the co-brokes. If you could come in on Monday and you've had 6 or 7 showings, pick 2 or 3 of those real estate agents out to send a personal note. Thank you for showing my listing. You do that with a system and consistently, and you will watch your business soar. So let me see, high tech, high touch, power of personal notes. Okay, the next thing is conditions are going to really matter on a house right now. we are going to have our sellers agree to hire us in writing, and then talk to them about the condition of their house. Now, that doesn't mean we need total rehauls and revamps. That just means we are going to really have to see, is the house cluttered? Do we need to consult our sellers to remove some of their furnishings and items? Does the carpet need to be cleaned? We're going to have to work a little bit harder on condition. We don't want to walk into a listing that doesn't show well and overwhelm the seller. We might want to price it accordingly on that, but we still are going to have to say, is there any way to remove some items? Can you rent a warehouse for 2 months? It might cost you $60 a month, which is $120, but I promise you, we will reap thousands in return. You might have to have some of those conversations that today's real estate agent is not used to having. They may have to put them in the garage, put some things in the garage. Kitchens and bathrooms are where you want to have your sellers really concentrate. Make sure that they know they should make their bed every morning. Remember, I talked about setting up expectations. This is one of the ones you want to set up. So here's what you'll say. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want you to know that the day you wake up and vacuum your house and clean it spotless, there's not a spot on any of your mirrors, there's kitchen counters are clean, we will not be here. Now, the day you run out of the house and don't make your beds and leave dirty dishes in the sink, we will be here 4 times for showings. And so I don't want you to be surprised by that. I want them to not be disappointed if they don't get a showing, and to let them know that I'll be watching that. So we also want to let you know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that sometimes agents get talking during showings and they'll leave a ceiling fan on or your air conditioning on, or sometimes even a sliding glass door unlocked. Please don't let that alarm you. They don't mean it on purpose. It's all part of putting your house on the market. It is not ideal. However, if you price it correctly, you won't have to put up with it long. So I always lay those expectations out up front so that when they come home and there's lights on and fans on, they're not calling and saying, oh my gosh, you know, it was like, they'll say to themselves, well, Jackie warned us on this. And yes, we did. Okay. So that is my number 2 tip, service. So number 1 was pricing and number 2 was servicing the listing, which brings us to number 3. And not only can we have to learn how to service on a higher level, today's consumer is going to want you to create an experience for them. Service is not the only thing that's going to put you on the career that you deserve. You're going to have to learn how to create experiences. And when I say experiences, custom to each seller, it's no longer the same for everyone. So how do you do this? Well, the first thing that we would do is we would either have our, at the listing table, go over a form that said, how do we get to, you know, we want to get to know you. It's called the Get to Know You form. We would also send it out in our pre-listing package to have them fill out prior to us getting there. And if they didn't fill it out, which is probably 50% of the time, we would call them and go over it with them. So what is a Get to Know You form? Well, the first thing is it will tell you what's your favorite beverage, what's your favorite restaurant, what's your favorite food, what's your favorite candy, where do you want to go on vacation, how long have you been in the house? And we'll ask all kinds of different questions so that we can get to know them and provide a level of service that is only custom to them. I think we said, what's your favorite books? What's your favorite movies? We want to be able to start a conversation or provide them with something that is only to them. So let me give you an example of how we use this, and these are all very true stories. We had a seller call us one day that was absolutely freaking out, even though we set up expectations, that the agent who showed their house didn't treat their home with respect. I don't even want to tell you everything that they found in this house, but I'll just give you an idea. They had left a mess here and there. They had left lights on. They didn't lock all the doors. They probably had footprints. It's been a couple of years, so I don't exactly remember, but the seller was very, very upset. And so rather than when they called, we took complete accountability for it, even though it wasn't us. Yes, was another agency. And that's what most of us would say. Well, you just know that wasn't a Keller Williams agent, but that's not what we want to say. We want to say, you know what, I want to apologize on behalf of all of us. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that I change your showing instructions in-house to make sure all lights are turned off, all doors are locked, and if there's a pet, I might include instructions on the pet. Also, I'm going to create a sign to put on the back of your front door so that as agents and buyers are leaving, it will be a reminder. If it's a shoe thing, I'll have a different system that they take their shoes off and put booties on with a little sign. Okay, and then I'll say, well, is that a good start, Mr. Seller? And I will personally follow up on your showings to make sure everything was done. And then about an hour later, we showed up at his door. I had a courier at the time with a silver tray. And on the tray was the hugest Milky Way bar you ever saw. How do I know he liked Milky Way? Because he, on his Get to Know You form, wrote that that was his favorite candy. So all of a sudden, I have dismantled the anger and got him to giggle a little bit and give us a chance for another week or two. So that's just one example. If they like the movies, and I can tell, it might have been a theater ticket, it might have been a pizza delivery. I think our favorite flower is on there. Figure out some good questions that we can ask our sellers to get to know them. What are the names of their pets? What are the names of their children? How old? Such stuff like that. Let's really get to know our sellers so that we can personalize and give them experiences. Now, just know, if you deliver their favorite candy bar or book or whatever, and some sort of a gift or some sort of an experience, that's what they're going to talk about. Let me give you an example of why we learned this, and that's from Disney World. I love to read stories about customer service that Disney World has. I don't know if you guys realize that Disney World has listening stations around. And so sometimes when you're in the line of a ride, they're listening to you. There are people and speakers everywhere listening to your conversation. So one day I heard a story. I've heard this from a Disney executive, that they overheard a family in line really debating whether to leave the park because the lines were so long, even though little Johnny wanted to go into what's the car, one Goodyear car, whatever, in Epcot or wherever it is. You guys know, I don't even know. And so, little Johnny wanted to do that. And so the racetrack one, Brett, is what I'm talking about. It's actually a pretty cool ride. Anyway, so before you know it, a representative appeared to this family and said, we'd like to take you up front and get you in right away. So, can you guys hear my landscaper? I'm so sorry, of all times. And he's right outside my window, so I apologize. So anyways, the family gets moved up front, they take the ride, and within hours, what do you think they're talking about? Are they talking about the long lines? Are they talking about how hot it is? No, they're talking about, oh my gosh, we were just saying how we didn't like long lines, and like a miracle or like magic, out comes a rep and puts us up front. So that's the example of customer service at a higher level. And they weren't talking about anything other than the experience. So how are you going to create experiences? A pre-listing package is one of them. This is another example of high tech, high touch. How are you going to send out a pre-listing package that is unique to you and also has some really fun and great items in it? Okay. So number 1, pricing. Number 2, service. Number 3, customer experience. And then I want to go into number 4. And our last tip before a little bonus is to negotiation. So somebody just chimed in and asked everybody to put their cameras on. So I agree, because it's better energy for all of you if you can see each other. Okay, negotiations. Now that's something that we did have some skills required in the market that we might be coming out of, because we would get multiple offers and really have to figure out which offer is the best for our seller. And that took time and skill and energy. Well, you may not be doing that so much, if at all, anymore. However, you are going to have to pay attention to certain things. So Appraisals are going to matter. Inspections are now going to matter. Your sellers are going to be required to do repairs. Home warranties might be something you want to look into. If you want your seller to be competitive in the market, if they have a home warranty policy that they're paying for, probably around $400 that gives the buyer peace of mind for a year, that might be something you want to look into. You want to pick the right offer and don't jump at every single one of them. And ladies and gentlemen, real estate professionals, lenders matter. I will have my sellers encouraged to turn down offers with mortgage brokers that I am not familiar with. Mortgage brokers in today's market and even coming up are going to want to grab every deal, whether they've actually done the homework or not. And you have to realize that a lot of them are packaging the file, turning it over to an underwriter and losing control of it altogether. I want to give it to someone that can talk with the underwriter, maybe even has an in-house type of underwriter or a relationship with one, because I don't want it to lose control over the file. So if a buyer comes to me through a co-broke, I get an offer on one of my listings and it's with a mortgage broker that I don't know of, I will encourage my seller to counter with, please have them pre-approved with a lender that I know. That doesn't mean they have to use the lender. It just means I want to hear that their money's not tied up in another listing and they're hiding that from me or another sale, and that they are really ready, willing, and able to buy. So when you start receiving offers, it matters very much how you handle them. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up by talking, unless you have questions, be thinking of them, and Ryan can read them to me. I'm going to be talking about the opportunities that are now coming our way with this market, because we're hearing a lot of doomsday. We're scaring a lot of real estate agents. And yes, real estate agents will begin to leave our business. Is that a bad thing? I'm not sure it is. The competition out there is unbelievable, and it's caused us to bend in ways financially that we shouldn't be doing. We are taking less money and spending more money on our listings, and that can't keep going. We can't make a living that way. So we are now going to have less competition, and sellers will need us more. They will pay what we ask for. They will not be so hard on negotiations. We will be able to be a resource, and we will be able to be valuable in ways that we haven't always had to be. Sellers have been aware that as soon as they go on the market now, they have sold, and they have valued our service less and less and less. That will start to end. The other thing is you can start to gain market share. If you've ever thought about farming or direct mail or becoming a specialist in a neighborhood, now is the time to do that. Start with 200 to 400 homes and take over, and you will never lose those again. If anybody else can think of any opportunities, please let me know. Put them in the chat box, because there are so many. Go ahead, Ryan.
We do have one. So I know this is near and dear to Brett's heart. He's always vocal about the fact that the residential contract should be used more. And most of the agents that we deal with nowadays don't know anything other than the as-is contract. So he's wondering if the residential contract will be making a comeback.
Well, I don't know why it ever. So when we say residential contract, what Brett's referring to is as is versus non as is. Have I got it right, Brad? I mean, Brett.
Yes, Jackie, that's right. So I refer to it as the general repair items and maintenance contract.
Right. So I never like an as-is contract ever. And so if a buyer brought me, a co-broke brought me an as-is contract, I would say to the seller, why don't we counter back, at least saying that we will repair up to $500? Because when you take an as-is contract, ladies and gentlemen, who has the power in that transaction? Is it the buyer or the seller?
The buyer has the power to walk for any reason during the inspection period.
And that could be because the house down the street came on and they like that one better. So in this coming up market, we can't have that, because they will walk. And by the way, I'm a broker as well, and I have almost 400 agents under me, and most of the transactions that fall apart right here. or with a lender, which we've already gone over. So we don't want to give the buyer that much power. We want to let them know if there's anything structurally unsound, if anything is not in working condition, or if anything is leaking, that we will fix it at least up to a certain amount. So the seller has the right to try to repair the stuff. Now, if we can't come to negotiations, then all parties can still walk. But we don't want to just say as is, and then we know the buyer's coming back with stuff, and now we haven't set up that correct expectation for our seller. And we have now possibly even blown it with our listing enough that they don't trust us anymore, which is the worst that can happen. So I hope, Brett, that you're right, that I'm not sure. So the whole as-is contract, I'm looking at the time and I'm running out of it. The whole as-is contract came about with a whole nother market, basically on short sales. And even though the short sales went away, the as-is contract didn't. It became a standard in the industry, and I just never understood that. It's a weakness. It's two things: a weakness on skills on our part, and the fact that we're just not teaching it out there. So try to, when you're talking to a buyer, say, listen, we're going to ask the seller to make so many repairs. If it's not the standard, then let's ask for $1,000 and maybe another 500 in case there's termites, stuff like that. It's case by case situation. Any other opportunities do you guys see with the market coming up?
Investment.
Yeah, oh boy, there's the biggest one. Gary Keller teaches us that every listing appointment, you should be either listing the home or buying the home, or at least looking at that opportunity. So absolutely, this is our time to shine out there. This is the time to start saving your money so that in a year, maybe you grow your profit share tree now when it's going to be easier than ever, because real estate agents out there are going to really need what we have to offer. This is when Keller Williams offices really grow, because we have what they're looking for. We are going to need new skills. When's the last time you guys went to a listing appointment or a presentation class? I love the lineup today that Ryan has put on with you, because one of your speakers, Ryan, is talking about buyer urgency. We're going to need to talk about that. The buyers now have the power. And so I just spent the entire day last week teaching a buyer presentation to our real estate agents at in KW Boca Raton, because we're going to have to practice that. We're having workshops on it. It's no longer winging and showing one house. Buyers have choices now, and they will take advantage of that. You're going to have to learn how to show property and how to present your skills, and you're also going to have to learn how to get a loyalty or an exclusive buyer rep agreement. Don't let this scare you. Dive into it, lean into it. Now, not everybody will. And unfortunately, if you don't make some changes, the real estate industry will change and leave you out of it. Okay, so I see it's 9:41. Ryan gave me to 9:45. So let me stop right here and see, is there any comments or questions, or did you receive any value? Or Ryan, anything else you would like?
Brent here has a question, Jackie. So I went ahead and brought him up.
Jackie, you had kind of touched on it in the fact that sellers will again start to see our worth as long as we are providing the experience and value that we need to. And I know from past experience, I got licensed in 2003, got to experience 2004 through 2006. And a lot of discount brokerages came out of nowhere. And in the downturn, they all went away. So I do think that we're going to see the end of discount brokers and brokerages. So, I think that's a good thing for us, as long as we're providing the value and experiences that we need for the sellers and justifying our percentages.
Well, right. And so if I'm a real estate agent that's learned how to wing it, and I go on a listing appointment and wing it, I'm not getting it. The days of that are done. I'm going to have to learn everything that I'm going to say and do on that listing presentation. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that we teach it at Keller Williams. So congrats on the amazing decision you made to partner with KW. And you can learn it. All of us can. I always talk about I'm a high school graduate, period. If I can do it, everyone can do it. And you guys can do this, but it takes effort. It takes a scheduling. You're going to have to pull out your calendar. You're going to have to look at your training calendars in your own market centers and see, are we teaching the listing presentation that I need? If not, then we're going to stop waiting to be spoon-fed information, and we're going to go to our education chairperson or our team leader or whoever you is one of your leaders in your market center, and you're going to say, where can I find a listing presentation class? And when you go to the class, that's just to figure out what you need to learn after class and practice and perfect. And you're not going to have to learn how to role play with each other. And I know that's awkward. I don't love it myself, but it is so valuable. Okay. What else?
We're definitely in a skill-based market. Jackie, before we go, I want to revisit the drawing you did. I went ahead and I have brought up here because I want to make sure that when everybody leaves, they have the ability to get this and not walk away from it. So do I have this accurate? Can you see it on the screen?
Oh my gosh, why didn't you do this for me before? This is amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt
have to turn my upside down thing.
So is
By
this,
the way, I draw it on purpose, Ryan, because I want you guys to draw it for your sellers. So I don't have a slide because there's something that's a sales skill to draw in front of a seller. Go ahead, Ryan.
No, I just want to make sure it's accurate. Is there anything else on here that I'm missing? Because after we're done, I'll go ahead and make sure once I have all these recorded, uploaded to the website, I'll put this in as a document as well.
I just like the arrows to go up, the X at the top, and then down. Chris Cusimano is on this call. I just want him to really quickly, because he just said he's teaching his listing presentation. He's one of my mega agents in the Boca office. He's running a really high, powerful team. So Chris, put in your chat box how people can get on that tonight real quick as we're talking, please. Okay, so no, this is really perfect, Ryan. It's perfect.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
Chris, unmute and talk real quick.
Oh, you wanted me to talk? Hi.
Yeah, babe.
Hello there.
Hi.
That's funny. I'm actually doing the PowerPoint for it now, and I saw your thing today. I'm like, oh, I'll jump in and listen to her in the background while I'm putting my PowerPoint. And then you just said that at the same time. I'm like, oh, no shit. Oh, sorry. Keller Williams. No poop. So yeah, I have a pretty unique listing presentation, and I'm ironically teaching part 3 of it tonight. Don't worry if you missed the first couple parts. We do a quick recap. So if you want to come, I'll just put a link of that for tonight at 8 o'clock. So
perfect.
Which is great for people who, you know, get the kids settled or whatever, and then chime in. Now, Chris teaches an entirely different listing presentation than I do. Is that correct, Chris? I'm guessing. Yeah. You know, you might love Chris's, you might love somebody else's, you might want to take one from here, one from there. The more you go to and really give it some thought as to what strategies you like. My listing presentation is a bit of everybody that I've learned from. There's a bit of Bruce Hardy in there, which is a mega agent out of Spokane, Washington. So Chris just posted his link, 8 o'clock. Is it every week, Chris? Yes or no? Yeah, every week. So, okay, what else, Ryan?
Well, while you're talking, I was writing this down because as you're speaking, I heard bits and parts of Jason Abrams coming right into my head because he's drilling this into all the RTT's heads. And I constantly am trying to drill this into our market center tech trainers heads. So this is an emotional proximity bar that I have showed up. And when you see these 2 people that I have right here, that's the face-to-face that you were talking about. At the end right here is the emails that go back and forth. So there's a lot in between. So where do you think some of these things that we communicate fall in between that spectrum? And the reason I bring that up is you were talking about sending handwritten notes. So where do you think that falls on that spectrum?
Towards almost to the face-to-face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have handwritten notes right here.
Emails are just, I don't know, guys. You know, I had to contact Ryan last night because I knew he had sent me a link in my email because he's on it. However, I don't actually check my own email. And I need to tell you guys that I pay somebody to do it. So I know that I didn't see that link. So I always just say, send it to me again. So it's on the top. And so I can't do emails. They're overwhelming. So I'm not sure an email, here's where you would use an email to follow up on a conversation, to document it. That's it. Don't do it any other way.
100%. So we show text right here. I also want to put something out there that you guys probably don't realize, but your KW mobile app that's branded towards you, that is higher up on that emotional proximity scale than some of the others. Because if somebody's going to Zillow and looking at property on there, they just see Zillow. But if somebody's going to your mobile app, they actually have your mobile app that's branded towards you. You're bringing them into your world, and you can actually have conversations and stuff around that. It's the same thing as going to your website because they're linked together and it's yours. And if you didn't know, we just actually, as of the other day, updated your website. So you can actually go in now and update your settings so that it can lead capture based upon how many times somebody looks at a property. So if they look at a property 2 times, then all of a sudden on the 3rd property, it'll force them to register and log in. So there's that update that just went out. But again, all this right here comes together and puts them in your world. And then that doesn't fall down here. That falls more up in here. That's higher than a text message if they're actually on your website or on your mobile app using it, because they took the time to actually go there. So I just wanted
the other
to
thing. Oh, sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
I was just saying, when I was listening to you, I just heard Jason Abrams the whole way through, and this is all his emotional proximity graphic that he always puts in front of us. Think about this when you're creating smart plans as well. Are you just going to send smart plans to people that are a whole bunch of text messages and emails? Because chances are you're just trying to get out of doing the actual real work rather than making those phone calls, sending those handwritten notes, which are higher up on this emotional proximity scale right here. So think about it when you build those, or if you're using them.
The other thing I want to end with is everybody thinks today's millennials or younger, 30 and under, are looking to be serviced via text. And they did a survey and found out that they really want to be notified they want a phone conversation, which just blows all of our minds. And that's because they really don't have a lot of knowledge when it comes to buying a house. They're not taught that. They don't know what that, we say, hey, how much are you going to put in escrow? They have no idea what you just said. The lender that you choose to work with them must be handholders. I almost think they should go apply for their mortgage in person, even though there's portals they can go to now, but they really need more handholding than any other class of buyers before. So be careful when you're working with the younger people, because, you tell them, for instance, to write a check. What are they going to say? They're going to say, what's a check? My daughter's 29 years old. She's never had a checkbook. I don't know how people live like that, but they do. And so, make sure that we're talking their language and really slowing down and educating. All right.
Jack, we have to also realize millennials are no longer 30 years old.
Oh, how old are they?
I don't know. Ariel, how old are millennials now?
We're no longer under 30. We're already in our 30s and 40s.
Well, so then let's just talk about this again. Let's take millennials, the word, out of it. By the way, they hate that word anyway, and just say 30 and under. And I don't want to just say first-time home buyers, because that's not always the case. But I saw this happen with one of my own administrators, Chris, Tabitha. She bought her first house when she was on my real estate team. And the lender figured she knew everything because she actually was a transaction coordinator for us. But when it came to her own house, she really, they were just talking over her head. You need to slow down a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. You did a great job. Thank you so much. And you are so worried that we wouldn't be able to fill the time.
I know, but I added a few tips in, Ryan. Did you see that?
You did great.
Just for you.
I appreciate it. And I think that everybody else got it. And this is going to be great to go back and watch. So